Hey, just a heads up, I'm typing this on my phone, so bear with me if there are a few typos. I'm a 16-year-old girl, and for as long as I can remember, I've been living with the woman I've always called my mom, she's 42, and the man I believed was my dad, he's 39. But recently, everything I thought I knew about my family turned out to be a carefully constructed lie, something my parents have clearly been hiding from me for years. One thing that always felt a bit strange growing up was the lack of photos. While other kids had baby albums and family portraits lining the walls, I had nothing before the age of 5 or 6. The only pictures of me were taken after that age. My parents had told me all the early ones were lost in a house fire that happened when I was still a toddler. I never questioned it much after all, I couldn't remember any fire. But now, I know that whole story was just a cover-up. I stumbled across the truth last week during a visit to my mom's younger brother, my uncle, who's 33. My parents never really liked him and always made sure I only saw him if they were around. They never explained why, but they made it clear I wasn't supposed to spend time with him alone. Thing is, I've always gotten along with him way better than I have with my parents. He's chill, funny, and actually seems interested in the things I enjoy. He'd recently picked up the latest book in his series I'm obsessed with, so I decided to go see him without telling my parents. Uncle and I have always shared a different kind of bond. He listens. He makes me feel seen. That's more than I can say for my mom and dad, who've always felt emotionally detached. Not neglectful or cruel, just distant. They were always way more hands-on with my younger sister, Riley, who's 2 years younger than me. When we were younger, I used to think it was unfair, but eventually, I stopped letting it bother me. I love Riley, and as long as everyone's needs were being met, I didn't see a reason to make a big deal out of it. My uncle agreed to keep my little secret visit between us. He knew how much of a bookworm I am and figured my parents would overreact. While he went off to make us some lemonade, I wandered over to his massive bookshelf. On the bottom shelf, tucked behind some thick hardcovers, I noticed something out of place. It looked like a photo album, one he'd clearly tried to hide. Curious, I pulled it out and started flipping through the pages. The first few were random, but then I came across a series of wedding photos. I instantly recognized my mom. She looked pretty much the same as she does now, but the groom standing next to her? I had no idea who that man was. He looked nothing like the man I've always called Dad. I froze. These weren't just any pictures, they were from my mom's actual wedding, and I could recognize several of her family members in the background. That confirmed it. But the man beside her wasn't even close to resembling my dad. I was still holding the album when my uncle came back into the room. The moment he saw what I had in my hands, his face went pale. He awkwardly tried to change the subject by talking about the new book, but it was way too late for that. I wanted answers. I demanded to know why he had an album full of photos from a past I was told didn't exist, photos of my mom's wedding, of me as a small child. I'd spent my whole life believing there were no pictures from that time, and now here they were right in front of me. And not only that, the groom wasn't even the man I called my father. At first, my uncle hesitated, insisting this wasn't really his secret to share. But after a bit of pushing, a lot of pushing, he finally broke. He said I was old enough now and had every right to know the truth. What he told me completely rewrote everything I thought I knew about my family. You see, I've only ever known my mom's relatives. Anytime I asked about my dad's side, she told me he'd been orphaned young, and the few relatives he had didn't care enough to keep in touch or help raise him. It sounded tragic, so I believed her. But it turns out that wasn't the truth at all. My uncle told me my biological father's family is still very much alive. The whole orphan story was a lie, made up to keep me from discovering what really happened. Here's the twist, the man I've been calling Dad all my life isn't actually my father, he's my uncle. My real dad was his brother. Yeah, it took me a second to process that too. Apparently, my mom had an affair with my biological father, who ended up getting sick, motor neuron disease. By the time she divorced her first husband, my actual dad, the court granted her full custody of me. Her reasoning? His health made it impossible for him to care for a child on his own, and his family didn't step in either. So joint custody wasn't even on the table. He was granted visitation rights, but my mom rarely let him see me. I was only about 5 or 6 when he passed away, and I don't remember much, just a few faint images here and there. That's all I have of my real dad. Just scraps of memory, and now, finally, the truth. I never truly saw him as my father, not because I didn't want to, but because no one ever told me he was. The only father figure I had growing up was the man I now know is actually my uncle. My mom married my real dad about 2 decades ago, back when they'd already been together since their school days. They dated all through high school and college, and after being together for so long, getting married seemed like the natural next step. But apparently, my mom wasn't ready for any of it. She pushed back hard against the idea of starting a family, even though it wasn't my dad putting pressure on her, it was his family. He used to tell her to just tune them out, to not let it get to her, but she couldn't. His indifference to the pressure only made her more frustrated, and it led to fight after fight. At one point, she turned to his brother for help, my current dad. She claimed she wanted support to fix her marriage, but instead, she leaned on him for more than just emotional comfort. For years into her marriage, she started cheating on my dad with his own brother. She planned to come clean, but then found out she was pregnant with me. Around the same time, my dad was diagnosed with motor neuron disease. She ended up telling him the truth after I was born, and he filed for divorce and joint custody. But the court denied him, citing his health, and after that, he never had a real shot at being in my life. He tried appealing more than once. But because of his condition, those efforts never went anywhere. So I never got to spend time with him, never got to know him as a father. Honestly, my memories of him are so faint they barely exist. Still, a DNA test had confirmed I was his daughter, which makes all of this even harder to swallow. I think that's why my mom and her new husband, technically my uncle, always kept an emotional distance. Maybe I reminded them too much of what they did, of the man they betrayed. Then, 2 years after I was born, Riley came along. And by the time I turned 6, my biological dad was gone for good. So yeah, that's my family. A tangle of lies they worked overtime to hide from me. And now that I know the truth, it's impossible to look at them the same way. Whatever love or respect I had for them evaporated the moment I pieced it all together. I'd always assumed they doted on Riley more because she was the baby. But now I see it wasn't about her, it was about me, and who I came from. After my uncle finished telling me everything, I completely broke down. I'm not exaggerating, it felt like my whole world collapsed in seconds. I'd spent years making excuses for the way my parents treated me. I kept telling myself that I was just being sensitive, or that I misunderstood their coldness. I tried to believe they loved me just as much as they loved Riley. But now I realize it wasn't in my head. It was real. They kept me at arm's length because I was living proof of the mistake they made and the man they wronged. And the one person who should have had a chance to be my dad never got it. I was devastated. But once the shock started to settle, I knew I couldn't stay in that house anymore. I made up my mind right then and asked my uncle if he could grab my things from home. I didn't want to go back. I couldn't face them. He agreed without asking too many questions, and I didn't have to see their faces again. At least not right away. But the moment my parents figured out what I was doing, the phone calls started. They told me I couldn't just run away and live with my uncle, that no matter what had happened, they were still my parents and they still loved me. They said I was overreacting and that I needed to be mature about it, that I should consider their feelings. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. They had lied to me for my entire life, and now they wanted me to put their emotions first? If they had actually been good parents, if they had given me love and security, I might have been able to forgive the lies. But they didn't. They made me feel like I was never quite enough, like something was off with me, even when I tried so hard to make them proud. So yeah, I snapped. I told them exactly how I felt. That they were liars. That they were bad parents. That I didn't want anything to do with them anymore. Then I hung up. I waited for my uncle to come back, curled up in his guest room, sobbing my heart out. When he returned about an hour later, he looked like he was carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. He had my clothes, my laptop, and the stuff I asked him to grab. Since we're on winter break, I didn't need anything school-related, at least nothing urgent, and the rest of my school supplies were still in my locker. He apologized right away. Said he was sorry for dumping the truth on me all at once without warning. He knew it wasn't really his place to say anything, and apparently, my parents had ripped into him after they found out what he did. Still, he told me I could stay with him for a while, just until I figured out what I wanted to do next. He didn't say it out loud, but I could tell he was kind of hoping I'd eventually go back to my parents. I didn't say anything to him at the time, but I knew deep down that this arrangement couldn't last forever. I love my uncle, and I know he loves me too. But I'm not blind. I can feel that this isn't what he signed up for. He's doing this out of kindness, not because he actually wants to be responsible for a 16-year-old girl until she heads off to college. And honestly, I don't want to be a burden either. As grateful as I am for his help, this situation is far from perfect for either of us. There's a lot I didn't really think through when I made the decision to leave. I was so focused on getting out that I didn't stop to consider what the future might actually look like. But even now, with all those unknowns ahead, I still don't want to go back to my parents' house. They've been reaching out, sure, but I can tell it's all forced. Their calls and messages feel more like they're checking a box than actually trying to make things right. It's obvious they're reaching out because they feel like they have to, not because they truly miss me or want me back. Everything they say is centered around how impractical it is for me to stay with my uncle, and how I should stop running away from my problems and deal with things like an adult. But not once have they said they love me or that they want me to come home because they miss me. They keep throwing the word grown up at me like it's some kind of solution, but I'm literally 16. I'm not a grown up. I'm a kid who just found out her whole life was based on a lie. What do they expect me to do with that? And honestly, the more they try to guilt trip me, the less I want anything to do with them. The last time they called, they actually said it looked bad for the family if a teenage girl chose to live with her uncle instead of her parents. They made it sound creepy and inappropriate, which was disgusting and frankly, unforgivable. I keep asking myself if maybe I'm overreacting. Like, am I blowing this all out of proportion? But then again, maybe not. I don't know. Maybe I am justified in refusing to return to a home where I was lied to for 16 years, where my so-called dad is actually my uncle, and my mom had an affair and kept it hidden until it was convenient to forget. Update 1. It's been a few days since all this went down, and yesterday something in me just snapped. I told my uncle I wanted to talk to a lawyer, anyone who could help me understand what my rights even are in this situation. I don't think he was expecting that. The look on his face said it all. As soon as I said it out loud, the weight of everything hit me at once, and I started crying. I didn't mean to break down like that, but I couldn't help it. The tears just kept coming, and no matter how much I tried to pull myself together, I couldn't stop. I tried to explain how lost I felt, how overwhelmed everything had become. It's been almost 10 days since I moved in with my uncle. And even though I'm technically getting more attention now than I ever did before, both from my uncle and, ironically, from my parents, I've never felt more alone in my life. Yesterday was the breaking point. I completely fell apart in front of him. But thank God, my uncle didn't turn away. He hugged me tight, stayed with me while I cried it all out. And eventually, he cried too. He told me he hadn't wanted to be the one to dump all this on me. He really tried not to say anything. But he just couldn't keep watching me live a lie while everyone else got to move on. And after my parents found out what he told me, they went after him hard, especially my mom. She apparently accused him of being some kind of creep who was just trying to steal my attention. That's the sickest thing I've ever heard. For her to say something like that about her own brother and me just showed me exactly what kind of person she really is. No one in this family has ever stepped up to help me. Not my mom, not the man I thought was my father. Only my uncle. And now he's being attacked for doing the one decent thing anyone's ever done for me. I honestly believe that if it weren't for the need to keep up appearances, my parents wouldn't even care that I was gone. The only thing they're really upset about is having to explain why I'm not around, why their perfect family image is falling apart. It's so selfish, it makes me sick. And now my uncle, who only ever tried to protect me, is being treated like garbage because he gave me the truth. I guess we're both the black sheep now. And honestly, I'm okay with that. I'd rather be on the outside with someone who actually cares than part of a family that treats love like a performance. The one bright spot in all this has been Riley. She hasn't mentioned our parents at all, which I really appreciate. She just said she misses me and that I should take as much time as I need before I come back to her, not to us. She knows I don't want to see them. She's the only one who's been honest and kind in a way that doesn't feel fake. And my uncle? He told me I can stay with him for as long as I need. No pressure. No timeline. Just support. And right now, that means everything. My uncle actually apologized to me recently for making me feel like I wasn't truly welcome at first. He admitted he got caught up in his own feelings and failed to see that what I was going through, as a teenager, was far more painful than anything he was dealing with. He told me he wants to do better now and is fully committed to putting my needs before his own moving forward. He's already started speaking with lawyers, because he knows my mom too well and wouldn't be surprised if she tried to twist this whole situation into something ugly, even if it meant dragging her own brother's name through the mud. That's how low people's expectations are when it comes to my parents. I've seen comments from strangers saying I'm being dramatic or overreacting, and to those people, I honestly want to say, if you were in my shoes, if you'd been lied to your whole life and cast aside for reasons completely out of your control, would you be okay with that? Would you still feel warm and fuzzy toward the people who deceived you? If your answer is yes, then maybe I am being unreasonable. But we both know they can't say that honestly, so no, I don't think I'm out of line for feeling the way I do. Update 2. My uncle met with a lawyer and had the paperwork drawn up for him to adopt me once my parents sign over their parental rights. Last night, I called them to let them know that this is what I want. It did not go well. They completely lost it. Called me ungrateful. Accused me of being overdramatic. Said they'd done their best to raise me and couldn't understand why I was trying to destroy the family. Their best, by the way, didn't include visiting me once since I left. I brought that up, and of course, they had a dozen excuses. They claimed they were giving me space, but the second I said I wanted to make that distance permanent, they panicked, not because they care, but because of how it would look to other people. They're terrified people will find out who they really are, two former cheaters trying to play house. That's probably their only real fear, their reputation. I swear, if there were an award for emotionally manipulating your child until she questions whether her feelings are even valid, they'd win that too. Maybe I'm being harsh. But after everything they've said and done, they earned it. And honestly, they're lucky I'm venting here anonymously instead of outing them publicly. I could air their dirty laundry by name if I wanted, but I won't stoop to that level unless they give me a reason to. I'm not afraid anymore. Riley isn't thrilled about my decision, but she respects it. And that's more than I could ask from someone younger than me. If I'm still trying to process this mess, I can't expect her to handle it any better. I don't blame her for choosing to stay, it's not like she has another option. My uncle couldn't realistically take care of both of us, and legally, I don't think he'd even be allowed to since our parents haven't treated her the way they treated me. We've given them a week to decide. They can either hand over custody willingly, or we'll take it to court. If they choose to fight, they'll spend a ton of money on a battle they can't win, because I've already made up my mind. I'm not going back. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's been a week since my last update, and I've got some big news. 2 days ago, my parents officially signed away their parental rights. I've still got 2 years before I'm legally an adult, but I'm so relieved. Just knowing they have no control over me anymore feels like freedom. And weirdly enough, I have my grandparents to thank for that, though not in the way you'd hope. They didn't suddenly rally behind me or come to my defense. Instead, they showed up at my uncle's house, uninvited, to lecture me. They tried to guilt-trip me into feeling grateful that my mom adopted me and that my dad raised me even though I wasn't biologically his. They said I owed them thanks for taking me in, because my biological father's family had abandoned me. But I know the truth now. The only reason my mom and uncle stepped in was to avoid public embarrassment. If they hadn't, my real dad would have exposed their affair. The only thing they were protecting was themselves. After I calmly laid all of that out to my grandparents, things exploded. We had a massive argument. They swore they'd make my mom kick me out of the house, completely unaware that I'd already left on my own. Their threats didn't scare me. I slammed the door in their faces as they left. My uncle and I were both shaken up after that fight. A lot of awful things were said. But one good thing came out of it. The pressure from my grandparents is what finally pushed my parents to give up their rights. So I guess a thank you, I guess? Right now, I'm in the process of being legally adopted by my uncle. I'm okay with it. Honestly, I'm more than okay with it. The only thing I'll really miss is living with Riley. She texted me after it happened and told me she's been forbidden from speaking to me or seeing me. But we both know we're not going to let that stop us. We'll still see each other at school. It won't be the same, and maybe we won't get as much time together, but we'll make it work. Life is going to look different now. But I'm ready for that. At least I'm free from parents who never truly loved me. I don't have to beg for their approval anymore or wonder why I was never enough. I can finally just breathe. And that feeling? That deep, peaceful breath of being fully myself, for the first time ever, is worth every single tear I shed because of them.